For our mid-morning edition of Arirang News, I'm Mark Broom. Let's kick things off with a look at the day's headlines. The time has finally arrived. High-level officials are at the DMZ for the first inter-Korean talks in 2 years. The main topic of conversation is the Winter Olympics, but it's hoped Seoul and PyeongChang can widen the scope of their dialogue. The International Olympic Committee pushes back the deadline, keeping the door open for North Korea to take part at the PyeongChang Winter Olympics. The North Korean representative to the IOC is due for talks with the head of the Olympic body. Plus, Samsung Electronics predicts record-breaking operating profits of more than $14 billion for the fourth quarter on the back of its booming semiconductor business. So, only one place to start this morning, and that's the inter-Korean talks at the border, the first high-level dialogue between the South and North in 2 years. There's a renewed sense of optimism that the two sides can start 2018 as they mean to go on. We have our Ji Myung-gil standing by for us at the Office for South-North Dialogue in Seoul, where all the details related to the meeting will be gathered. So, Myung-gil, these talks are just getting underway, we believe. What do we know so far?
Hello, Mark. Well, as you mentioned, the high-level talks are currently taking place at the Truth Village of Panmunjom. Now, the talks have just started, but we don't exactly know if the talks will finish today or take 2 or 3 more days. And of course, it is obvious that the South Korea's presidential office of Cheongwade is currently monitoring the situation throughout the day. Now, I'm here at the Unification Ministry, at the Unification Ministry's special office for Inter-Korean Dialogue, which was set up in 1971. And this is where all the information will be gathered throughout the day. Now, the North Korean delegation crossed the military demarcation line at 9:30 a.m. to the southern part. And the South Korean Unification Minister left this building to head for the DMZ in the early morning hours. Let's listen to what he had to say.
There's a lot of interest in today's high-level talks as they are the first under the new administration. We will calmly lead the talks to make the PyeongChang Winter Olympics an event for peace and a stepping stone for better inter-Korean ties.
So, the 5-member delegations from both sides are currently meeting at the House of Peace on the southern side of Panmunjom. The South Korean delegation is led by Unification Minister Cho Myung-gyun, and the North Korean delegation is led by Lee Sun-kwon, the chairman of North Korea's committee dealing with inter-Korean affairs. The breakthrough call between Seoul and Pyongyang came last week after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's New Year's address and the reopening of a communication hotline at Panmunjom. The government hopes improved inter-Korean relations will pave the way toward resolving the North nuclear issue and for broader talks between Pyongyang and Washington.
And Myung-gil, the PyeongChang Winter Olympics is expected to top the agenda, as that is the main purpose for this meeting. But many people do hope the two sides can also thrash out their differences on a number of other issues as well.
Now, that's right, Mark. Helping North Korean athletes attend the PyeongChang Winter Olympics will be the focal point in the talks. But there are hopes that maybe other issues, such as the reunion of families separated during the Korean War in the 1950s, and even the possibility of reopening the Kaesong Industrial Complex, could be part of the talks. Now, it is unsure that many talks will be at the talks will be issued. There will be many topics at the talks. But since the two Koreas haven't met for 2 years, we don't know if the talks will be able to have a fruitful outcome, since the last talks were done in December 2015. Now, concerning the Olympics, the biggest issue will be how many North Korean athletes could attend the Games and how they physically get to PyeongChang. The organizing committee for the PyeongChang Winter Olympics has said that they have been preparing for the possibility of North Korea attending the Games. So even after today's meeting, talks will likely continue at the working level to craft detailed schedules. In July last year, Seoul proposed holding military talks on easing border tensions and a Red Cross meeting to discuss reunions of divided families. But North Korea has not responded to that proposal. Mark.
Well, thank you very much for that report, Myung-gil, and do keep us updated on the developments as you get them there at Seoul's Unification Ministry on this big day on the Korean Peninsula. Now, the central theme, as we heard from our Ji Myung-gil there, of these talks will be the Winter Olympics. Just around a month away now. But of course, there are other agendas, which Myung-gil also touched upon, that both sides want to bring to the dialogue table. So we're going to expand upon what kind of topics they might be. Lee Jung-yeon takes a closer look.
The main topic of discussion at the first high-level inter-Korean meeting is, of course, the 2018 PyeongChang Olympics. The key agendas most likely to be discussed are how the North Korean athletes would make their way into South Korea, as well as whether the squads from South and North Korea would enter together at the opening and closing ceremonies. The general perception among pundits is that these issues have fairly straightforward answers. What's drawing more attention is the other topics that could come up at the table, including inter-Korean family reunions or an easing of military tensions.
The talks will mainly focus on the PyeongChang Olympics. Inter-Korean family reunions will also likely be on the table, but the other agendas will more likely be brought up later on.
These other agendas include South Korea and the U.S. putting an end to their joint military drills, a long-standing demand of the North, as well as resuming tours to Mount Kumgang and reopening the Kaesong Industrial Complex. Experts say, however, that it would be a stretch for the two sides to discuss all of those things at their first meeting, and that just finalizing procedures for the Olympics would be enough to make the talks successful.
The significance of Tuesday's talks is in improving inter-Korean relations, so using the discussion of the PyeongChang Olympics as momentum for additional negotiations is more realistic, and it's really the key task.
Meanwhile, with U.S. President Donald Trump expressing his support for inter-Korean dialogue, the expert added that however slim the chance may be, it could be possible to bring the U.S. and North Korea together for discussion if under the neutral agenda of, quote, a peaceful solution to the nuclear issue on the Korean Peninsula. Lee Jung-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, the International Olympic Committee says it's keeping the door open for North Korea to take part at the PyeongChang Winter Olympics here in South Korea. A spokesperson for the IOC said the Olympic body is extending the deadline for registration while respecting UN sanctions on the regime. The IOC added that it wants all athletes to compete at the Olympics beyond political tensions and divisions, and said that it's talking to all the related parties. And ready for talks, North Korea's representative to the IOC, Jang Eung, is in Switzerland ahead of his meeting with IOC President Thomas Bach. Asked upon his arrival about how many athletes North Korea might send to PyeongChang, Chang said that the IOC will announce the details soon. A US-based cybersecurity firm has discovered software that installs code for mining cryptocurrency and sends mined coins to a North Korean university. This appears to be the latest effort by Pyongyang to find an alternative stream of revenue as intensified UN sanctions continue to bite. Park So-yeon with the details.
Cyber firm Alienvol says it has found software created late last month that uses host computers to mine a cryptocurrency called Monero and sends the coins to Kim Il-sung University in Pyongyang. It says the North Korean server, however, is not connected to the wider internet, raising the possibility that it was included to trick observers into connecting the software to North Korea. The university host student US dollars is a particularly appealing choice of payment among cyber criminals, as it's easier to hide and launder compared to Bitcoin. There have also been previous reports of North Koreans mining Monero. A North Korean hacking group called Andariel penetrated a server of a South Korean company, has been active in Bitcoin trading, and was related to cyber attacks in South Korea in 2014 and 2015. North Korea has shown increased interest in cryptocurrencies. Pyongyang University of Science and Technology recently invited foreign experts to lecture on cryptocurrencies. As North Korea widens its hunt for cash under the highest level of sanctions in history, Pyongyang is hoping cryptocurrencies may provide an alternative source of financial income. Park So-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korea's foreign ministry is set to announce its stance on the review of the controversial 2015 deal between Seoul and Tokyo on Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. Clear on the deal's failings, the Moon Jae-in administration will reveal its follow-up measures, though a renegotiation isn't expected to be on the cards. Kwon Jang-oh with the details.
Seoul has confirmed that follow-up measures will be announced on Tuesday to the 2015 bilateral agreement between South Korea and Japan on Japan's wartime sex slavery, which President Moon Jae-in has described as defective. This comes less than 2 weeks after a government task force review strongly criticized the deal that was reached by the previous administration and Tokyo for failing the victims by not adequately involving them enough. However, according to government sources, the administration is not expected to scrap or ask for a renegotiation of the deal immediately, as some have called for. Instead, the government will pass the responsibility on to Tokyo to take responsible steps to address the controversial aspects of the deal. The decision comes as South Korea's Northeast Asian Affairs Chief Kim Yong-gil hosted a meeting with his Japanese counterpart Kenji Kanasugi in Seoul on Monday. Although South Korea's foreign ministry said the two had discussed various bilateral issues, the 2015 deal was at the forefront of their agenda, and most likely the meeting was the chance that Seoul took to inform Tokyo of its follow-up measures regarding the deal before Tuesday's official announcement. Meanwhile, early in the day, Seoul's top nuclear envoy Lee Do-hun also met with Kanasugi, who also acts as Tokyo's representative for the stalled six-party talks. The foreign ministry said the two discussed the upcoming inter-Korean talks. They are said to have agreed that while they must ensure security in the region, they must also cooperate and use this opportunity to try and draw North Korea out to further significant discussions. The foreign ministry also announced that Lee will travel to the US on Wednesday to meet with his Washington counterpart, Joseph Yun, and brief the US nuclear envoy on the meeting with Kanasugi and on last week's meeting with Beijing's nuclear envoy. Lee will also discuss with Yoon and other White House officials the results of the inter-Korean talks and further North Korea-related issues. Kwon Jang-oh, Arirang News.
Now, shifting our attention to the ongoing talks aimed at renegotiating the South Korea-US free trade deal, Korea's trade minister has stressed that no deal is better than a bad deal. This, a few days after the two countries concluded their first round of talks in Washington to amend the FTA. Kim Hyun-jong added that the negotiating team will stand up to US demands and will walk out of talks if the offer hampers Seoul's technology development and negatively impacts the next generation. The minister said that Korea will focus on its capacity to maximize national interests while protecting its agriculture sector and reflecting the interests of local industry. South Korea's auto industry is set to feel the pinch of potential changes, with the sector among the first US targets in the renegotiations. South Korea's minimum wage this year is going up by more than 16% to around $7 an hour. That's great news for millions of workers here, but some businesses might see what they can do to get around it. So, to ensure employees are paid the legal amount, the country's Labour Ministry says it's holding on-the-spot inspections of local firms. Kim Hae-sang with the details.
The Labour Ministry will start inspecting around 5,000 businesses in the country to see if they're complying with the higher minimum wage. During a 3-week transition period, the Labour Ministry will send out letters and hold briefing sessions on the minimum wage law and show examples of violations. Then, starting January 28th, the ministry will examine businesses including apartment maintenance contractors, convenience stores, gas stations, and restaurants up until the end of March. This comes after an increase in layoffs reported among janitors and convenience store employees. The ministry will check whether businesses have raised minimum wages to over 7,530 won, or about $7 an hour, and whether they unilaterally changed their wage systems or cut working hours to skirt the law.
To violators, the ministry will give corrective orders. Employers that do not follow the corrective orders will face up to 3 years in prison or a fine up to $18,800. The Labor Ministry said the inspection is to help the minimum wage hike go smoothly. Starting in 2018, the minimum wage in Korea has gone up by 16%, marking the biggest jump in 2 decades as the Moon administration seeks to shift the economy away from its export dependence to an income-led economy. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
The world's largest chipmaker Samsung Electronics says its fourth quarter operating profits jumped 64% on year to a record high. The Korean tech giant announced Tuesday that its profits logged during the October to December period came to $14.1 billion up from $8.6 billion a year ago. Sales soared nearly 24% to more than $61.7 billion, surpassing the $56 billion mark for the first time. The report card puts Samsung's annual operating profits and sales at historic highs, though the firm has yet to break down the figures for its various business divisions. Industry watchers say the main driver of the record high figures was almost certainly Samsung's booming semiconductor sector. And Korean tech giant LG Electronics has revealed its fourth quarter profits. The figures are in the black, but slightly below expectations. Park Hee-jun with the details.
South Korean tech giant LG Electronics has revealed its estimated fourth quarter earnings for 2017. According to the company's regulatory filing, its operating profit reached $343 million, while its revenues reached $15.8 billion for the October-December period last year. While it succeeded at making a profit, the figures fell below the market consensus of $441 million compiled by Yonhap Infomax. This is largely due to the underperformance of the mobile business. LG Electronics' mobile business is presumed to have seen quarterly losses of over $187 million in the fourth quarter, despite launching the premium V30 smartphones and Q smartphones. But the company has been seeing strong sales in its home appliance and TV sectors. In addition to OLED display televisions, washing machines and vacuum cleaners have been performing well in the market. The company's new products, which include air cleaners and drying machines, have also contributed to the overall profits. For the entire year of 2017, LG Electronics recorded estimated revenues of over $57.5 billion. It's the largest total annual revenue the company has posted and the first time it has surpassed the $56 billion mark in its history. And in terms of operating profits, LG earned $2.2 billion, the second best performance recorded by the company. Park Hee-jun, Arirang News.
Now, the world's largest home appliance and IT exhibition opens this week in Las Vegas. Tech firms are at the Consumer Electronics Show 2018 to show off their latest gadgets aimed at making life that little bit more comfortable. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
Korean tech giants Samsung Electronics and LG Electronics say they'll present artificial intelligence and Internet of Things-based products and services at the upcoming Consumer Electronics Show 2018, held in Las Vegas starting Tuesday under the slogan, "The Future of Smart Cities." Samsung Electronics says its voice assistant and AI platform Bixby will be incorporated in its TVs, enabling them to learn from their owners' patterns. The new TVs will also feature SmartThings, Samsung's IoT platform hub to enable syncing with other devices, as well as a universal guide which recommends TV programs and content according to user preferences. Meanwhile, LG Electronics is to unveil new editions of premium TVs, including the OLED TV Thin Q and the Super Ultra HD TV Thin Q. They'll be equipped with Google's AI-enabled Google Assistant, as well as Deep Thin Q, LG's answer to Samsung's Bixby. Deep Thin Q will be able to provide features such as enabling users to operate TVs with only their voice or connecting to other home appliances powered by IoT technologies. LG also unveiled its new smart refrigerator featuring a camera and Amazon's Alexa, which responds to voice commands. The two companies will also unveil a new line of home robots, as well as technologies incorporated into autonomous or electric vehicles. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now it's time to take a look at the stories making headlines around the world. And we're going to start with a visit to China by the President of France. Emmanuel Macron began his first state visit to the country on Monday with a stop in Xi'an, an eastern departure point of the ancient Silk Road. For more on this and other news, let's turn to our Arirang. So Arirang, what exactly did this trip involve?
Well, Mark, Macron is hoping to relaunch EU-China relations often strained by Beijing's restrictions on foreign investment and trade. Europe has voiced concerns over whether Beijing's massive Silk Road revival plan, known as the Belt and Road Project, is aimed at expanding trade or if it is for geopolitical influence. Speaking at an event with business people, academics and students at the Daming Palace, Macron gave voice to those concerns.
After all, the ancient Silk Roads were never only Chinese. If I'm completely honest, I'm simply saying that inherent way these roads can only be shared. If they are roads, they cannot be one way. There must be comings and goings.
Later on Monday evening, Macron headed to Beijing to meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping. Xi said his French counterpart's trip signified Paris's will to improve ties with Beijing. France was the first Western power to establish diplomatic relations with China back in 1964. Chinese state media reported that issues other than bilateral relations discussed during their meeting included climate change and Xi's Belt and Road initiative. With just over a year left until Brexit, the President of the European Commission has called for an expansion to the bloc's joint budget. Speaking at a conference with finance ministers on Monday, Jean-Claude Juncker urged the remaining 27 EU member states to pay more to fill the €13 billion hole that would be left when Britain leaves the bloc. Brussels is pushing for member states to lift the imposed cap of 1% of EU gross national income on the bloc's common budget to 1.1%. Juncker said that the EU costs taxpayers barely the price of a daily cup of coffee. Other reasons Juncker cited for his proposed budget expansion was to meet growing needs on defence, migration and climate change. The cold wave, or bomb cyclone as it's known, that has been gripping America's northeast is finally set to ease this week. The U.S. National Weather Service predicts that a last flurry of snow will fall in Boston and New York and others on Monday evening. But over the next few days, these regions will see the mercury hover just above the freezing point and return to seasonal norms. A number of cities in the country's northeast saw record low temperatures this past week, with readings as low as -23 in some parts. The winter storm has left at least 22 people dead.
Good morning. Western parts of the country, including Seoul, received snow and freezing rain overnight. Daejeon and parts of the Chungcheongdo regions saw heavy snowfall, with a heavy snow advisory being issued in those regions, with snowfall to continue until this morning, then takes a break during the day before more snow falls tonight into Thursday. And unlike the bearable temperatures we had in Seoul yesterday, we'll deal with some bone-chilling temperatures with readings in the negative territory all day today, so dress extra warmly. And as for the daily highs, Seoul will only make it to -1 degree Celsius this afternoon, with more snowfall expected at night, while Gwangju and Jeju will also see snow later in the day. Teeth-chattering temperatures are on tap for the next 3 days. They're forecast to be the coldest days of the season, so be prepared. With that, let's take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world. While most regions in South Korea will see freezing temperatures returning with more snowfall later at night, most cities in North Korea will see colder temperatures today. And as for the rest of Asia, Beijing will have strong gusts in the afternoon under mostly cloudy skies throughout the day today. Meanwhile, Sydney swelters under a high of 32 degrees, then expect to see some scattered thunderstorms in the afternoon, and it's going to be a very humid day today. And heading to North America, a flash flood watch has been issued in LA, and the National Weather Service is urging Southern California residents in or below the recently burned areas to take steps to protect their property. And as for South America, Santiago and Buenos Aires will be under plenty of sunshine. And taking you to Europe, Paris, Rome, and Madrid will have a rainy Tuesday. Lastly, to Africa, Addis Ababa will have unstable weather conditions. And that's all the weather update for now.
And that's all the news we have for now as well. Our next bulletin is coming up at noon Korea time. So until then, goodbye.